This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
على مدى عام الاستحقاقات الانتخابية هذا في سوريا قلة.
Less than 30% of the registered Syrian voters participated in the parliamentary and municipal elections. The vast majority decided to boycott the elections, perhaps because the competing candidates offered more or less similar political platforms. Intisar Yunus reports from Damascus.
بين الأشخاص وغابة البرامج. انتصار يونس من دمشق.
للمرة الثالثة على مدار العام توجه السوريون إلى صناديق الاقتراع.
The Syrians have gone to the election booths for the third time in 1 year to vote for the representatives in the parliamentary and municipal elections. The candidates are competing for 9,687 seats, but so far the turnout has been lower than was expected, despite the unprecedented intensive campaigns that preceded these elections.
التي ميزت هذه الدورة من الانتخابات مقارنة بسابقاتها.
والله شفت كأنه الإقبال ضعيف.
The turnout was low. I do not know why, and more people may show up later on.
طبعا مارست حقي بالانتخاب وأديت الواجب الوطني اللي لازم إني.
I did my national duty and voted. All citizens must vote for their favorite candidate.
Just as the case was in the parliamentary elections, this campaign focused on the charismatic characteristics of the candidates in the absence of political programs.
I have noticed that none of the candidates had a clear agenda for the work needed to be done in his village, town, city, or province. Therefore, the competition based on a political program was limited.
وكان لافتا هذا العام عودة نظام انتخابات المجالس المحلية إلى نظام قوائم.
What was evident in this year's municipal elections is the return of the front list system used by the ruling coalition party in order to give the Baathists an equal opportunity. These local elections are the third election party, as some Syrians refer to them during this year. It seems that the voters still insist on boycotting the elections, at least for the time being, although these elections will have a more direct impact on their lives than previous ones. Intisar Yunus, Dubai Television, Damascus.
انتصار يونس تلفزيون دبي دمشق.
According to a medical source in Gaza, one Palestinian was killed by the Israeli army near the town of Wadi Gaza in the southern Gaza Strip. The body of the martyr, whose identity has not yet been identified, was transported to a local hospital in Gaza.
This military showdown is familiar to the Gaza Strip, where the Israeli army carried out an air raid targeting activists from the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. The Popular Front, along with Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades, had claimed responsibility for the latest round of missile attack on Ascalon and the Israeli settlement of Sedort to the northern Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, Israel has warned that it may carry out a new wide-scale offensive in the Gaza Strip, where Hamas is the primary target. This news comes despite the fact that the Palestinian resistance, including the various fractions, had claimed responsibility for the recent armed attacks, including the raid on Beit Hanun border crossing. It seems that Israel wants to capitalize on Palestinian division and carry out an assault on Hamas. Why not? Especially since Israel believes that a political justification will be an easier sell than a military one.
Hamas must understand that Israel will never give up. We will not remain silent, and we will respond to the shelling of our citizens. I support the use of military in order to stop this shelling. I do not rule out any option, including an incursion in the Gaza Strip.
هكذا تحدث وزير الداخلية الإسرائيلي، لكنه رأي حمله أكثر من وزير إسرائيلي إلى كواليس الاجتماع الأسبوعي لحكومة إيهود أولمرت.
These remarks, which were made by Israel's interior minister, came during a weekly session for the government of Ehud Olmert. In a private ministerial session, a government source leaked information that Israel is planning to carry out a new military escalation in the Gaza Strip. According to the source, Israel's Shin Bet intelligence agency has warned the government that Hamas is planning to carry out a large-scale attack inside Israel and seek to sabotage any political deal between Tel Aviv and the Palestinian Authority. Shin Bet added that Hamas leadership in Syria will give the orders to its military wings in Gaza. Meanwhile, hundreds of Gaza residents continue to cross to Egypt via the Israeli-controlled Aju border crossing after passing through the Bet Hanun passage, where some may be arrested, sent back, or die while waiting.
للخروج من غزة من أنحاء القطاع إلى معبر بيت حانون ومنه إلى معبر العوجة الإسرائيلي وأخيرا إلى مصر. ليسوا كلهم محظوظين.
Nahil Abu Nahil, an infant with a heart disease who is unable to withstand the long wait and the heat, died in his father's arms moments after crossing the Israeli checkpoint. This tragic loss seems less harsh than any foreseeable military escalation by Israel.
من اجتياز الحاجز الإسرائيلي، فأي تصعيد إسرائيلي قد يكون أقسى من خسارة كهذه.
Another inflammatory statement by Shas spiritual leader Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. During his weekly sermon, Rabbi Ovadia said it's no wonder that IDF soldiers are killed in war because they don't observe the Sabbath, don't observe Jewish law, and don't pray every day. The comment sparked intense criticism. Public Security Minister Avi Dichter said he was pained by the rabbi's statement, adding casualties to civilians and soldiers make no distinction between those who are more observant and those who are less observant. And David Einhorn, father of a soldier who fell in the Second Lebanon War, said his son was killed just minutes before morning prayer. Shas, in an effort to control the damage caused by Rabbi Ovadia's comment, issued a statement saying that the rabbi was praying for the soldiers.
I didn't hear Rabbi Ovadia. He is a great Talmid Chacham. But from my experience of 30 years serving in the army, religious soldiers as well as non-religious soldiers died in battles and in action. And for me, all those who are ready to sacrifice their life for the state of Israel, for the people of Israel, are wholly the same.
I think that his comment was wrong, was inappropriate. But you know, many times I dispute comments of spiritual leaders, and I still respect them.
The words of Ovadia Yosef are crazy and hurting. But if he is right and I'm wrong, and it is just because the soldiers are not religious people that they are being hurt and killed, he has a wonderful chance to refer to the people who listen to him in his own sector. They are young people full of energy who are practicing their religion. They should be recruited to the army, perhaps, and then they will be totally immune. So this is the moment to refer to them and to say to them, please be recruited to the army, register.
Dr. Azmi Bshara said that Israel is incapable of invading Lebanon again because the Lebanese resistance has proven that it was capable of defending the country during the last Israeli war on Lebanon, which he described as a war of annihilation. He made these statements while he was visiting villages in southern Lebanon, including Ben Jubayl, Maroun al-Ras, Aitarun, and Anata, to see the magnitude of the destruction that was left by the criminal enemy. He added that it was important to bring the perpetrators to justice so they could be punished by the international community. Bishara said that Israel does not commit massacres accidentally. Rather, it is a deliberate strategy used to horrify the population in order to prevent them from supporting the resistance.
Massacres have been committed since 1948. These are not accidents. Committing these massacres is an Israeli policy aimed at creating fear among the civilians. Israel has committed massacres since its early creation in Deir Yassin and Kfar Qasim. It uses these massacres as a strategy to create fear among people so they do not support the resistance or to force them to migrate and so on. The Israelis cannot claim that these massacres are exceptional or that they happened by mistake. These massacres are deliberate. However, in the latest Israeli war on Lebanon, it systematically targeted the entire Lebanese population in the south. It was very systematic, like someone plowing the land. We have pleaded with the international community that there was a genocide, killing and destruction of an entire society.
The ousted Palestinian Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh condemned the U.S. decision to place Al-Salah Islamic Charity Organization in Gaza on the blacklist.
وهذا القرار متصل بالحصار المفروض على.
This decision is linked to the economic boycott that has been imposed on our Palestinian people, our elected government, and on Gaza and its 1.5 million people. Internal, regional, and international forces are coordinating with one another to keep this boycott in place, because they do not want an Islamic model to be successful in governing. They do not want such a model represented by the Islamic resistance of Hamas to succeed in governing, because they are afraid that this model may be replicated in other areas in the Arab world. This is why they tighten the economic boycott. They want to foil this great model. They do not want it to succeed.
لكي لا ينتقل بتأثيراته إلى المحيط العربي والإقليمي، ولذلك يضيقون ويحاصرون ويكبتون هذا النموذج العظيم لأنهم لا يريدون له النجاح.
The residents of Al-Shola in Baghdad held a demonstration to protest the human rights violations committed by the American occupation forces, last of which was a raid conducted at night targeting the home of one of al-Mahdi's army leaders. His wife was detained for allegedly carrying out military operations against the occupation forces.
No one ever guessed that something like this would happen, that things can go this far. The American occupation forces raided a home in Shola and detained a woman because her husband is allegedly a leader in the Mahdi army.
He hit me and said that I should tell the truth now. The translator told me that I should tell them the truth. I told him, "What do you want me to tell them? I have nothing to tell them." He said that I should say that my husband is a terrorist and that he blows things up. They told me to give them his name, and I gave them his full name. They beat me and pulled me to the street. They searched our home and told me that if I do not tell them the truth, they would destroy it. I told them that I have nothing to tell. He beat me and pushed me away.
Abu Noor, who is a leader in the Mahdi army, told Al Alam television that the American occupation forces not only detained his wife, but also left his 4-month-old daughter in the street. Residents in the area took her as soon as the American military vehicles withdrew.
They raided my home and beat my wife and children. The ordeal lasted from 11 p.m. until 3 a.m. They beat my wife and took the dress she was wearing. They humiliated her in the street in front of everyone. They've pulled her from her hair. They stopped near the mosque of Imam Ali bin Shulla. They tore her dress, pulled her from her hair, and stepped on her head with their boots. The translator was telling them that she was only a woman, so even the translator was trying to stop this. Finally, they let her go near the mosque and gave her her dress after a great deal of agony.
الأمر لم ينتهي عند هذا الحد فمكتب الشهيد الصدر في مدينة الشعلة وبالتعاون مع أهاليها.
This is not the end of the story. A Sadr office organized a demonstration condemning this attack and demanded putting an end to these reckless arrests and raids. The last thing the occupation forces should attack is what the Iraqi society honors and cherishes. They must carefully study the possible repercussions of whatever steps they decide to take. From near the demonstration in the Sadr city in Baghdad, Abdullah Rubai, Al-Alam.
The situation of Iraqi prisoners is very troubling. The Iraqi authorities have decided to showcase the living conditions of prisoners by showing a video that was taken during a visit to Iraqi prisoners by the two Iraqi vice presidents, Tarek al-Hashimi and Abdel Mahdi.
Since the American invasion of Iraq in 2003, the American and Iraqi forces have imprisoned tens of thousands of Iraqis. In most cases, no charges were made against the detainees, who were only detained based on suspicion. Additionally, prisoners are held in overcrowded jails. The Sunni vice president, Tariq al-Hashimi, and the Shiite vice president, Adel Abdel Mahdi, visited Rosafa prison, the newest prison built in Iraq. Some of the prisons consist of white tents surrounded by barbed wires. The detainees took advantage of their official visit by demanding that the Iraqi authorities improve their living conditions.
The health services that are provided to people outside the prisons are not better than what you have been receiving. At least you feel safe. It's true you have lost your freedom, but you should keep your faith in God. You are safer than people outside.
The warden of the Rosafa prison said that the living conditions at his prison are in compliance with international standards. The tents are provided with electricity and air conditioners, but it seems that all of this did not calm the 2,700 prisoners held at Rosafa prison, most of whom are still waiting to stand trial. The Turks are preoccupied with the final round of the presidential elections, which will take place tomorrow. Gül's presidential candidacy has already generated controversy, but now his wife's headscarf has generated an even bigger one. Some believe that she does not symbolize secularism in Turkey, while others believe that she might provide the country with an historical opportunity to reconsider the ban on women to wear headscarves in official and public places.
Gül's candidacy for the presidency has created a controversy, and now the possibility that his veiled wife may become the first lady has created even a bigger one. Now all eyes are focused on this small detail of what will the wife of the most likely candidate to win the presidency wear.
Heronisa Gül. Remember this name very well, because it will be everywhere in the media.
She will be the first lady wearing a headscarf in a country that was based on secularism, freedom and affinity to European values, which Turkey has longed to be part of, and it will continue to do so forever. It is true that the majority of the Turkish population is Muslim, but if you were to take a tour of Turkey's streets today, you will get the impression that you are in a European country that has a Muslim minority. The discussions over the headscarf of the future First Lady never ends.
We consider ourselves very modern.
We consider ourselves modern women in Turkey, and the image of the First Lady wearing a headscarf does not reflect our feelings and reality.
However, others believe that if a veiled woman is allowed to become the First Lady of Turkey, it means that its democratic system is healthy.
Many look negatively at women who wear headscarves. Perhaps if Gül's wife becomes the First Lady, this will be a positive step towards accepting the right of women to wear headscarves in Turkish society.
Turkey bans women from wearing headscarf in official public institutions and schools as a way to protect its secular principles. If Gül's wife becomes the first lady, this will be viewed as a provocation by those who support the principles of secularism, as was established by the father of modern Turkey, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, Amin Abu Yahya al-Arabiya.
Iran's permanent ambassador to the International Atomic Energy Agency, Ali Asghar Soltanieh, met with IAEA Chief Mohammad al-Baradhi on Monday and handed him a letter of agreement between Iran and the UN Atomic Watchdog's delegation. The official document contains the modality of recent talks in Tehran between the two sides to resolve the outstanding issues over Tehran's nuclear case. The Director General of the IAEA, for his part, said he will reflect the content of the Tehran agreement in his report to the Governor's Board this week. The upcoming meeting of the IAEA's Governing Council is scheduled for early September in Vienna. French President Nicolas Sarkozy says Iran's nuclear standoff should be resolved through diplomatic means. Speaking to French ambassadors abroad, he called Iranian people as a great nation and said France will spare no efforts in convincing Iran to enter serious negotiations with the Europeans, Americans, Chinese and Russians to reach better achievements. Warning of confrontations between Western and Eastern civilizations, he said this would be the biggest danger threatening the entire world. Elsewhere, in his remarks on his first major foreign policy speech since taking office earlier this year, President Sarkozy said Iraq's road to recovery begins with a clear timetable for the pullout of foreign troops, as he outlined an assertive role for France in world's hotspots. Iraq's political leaders squeezed out a broad brush deal early Monday aimed at bridging the divide under mounting pressure from Washington. The accord was cautiously welcomed by the White House, which faces growing calls to withdraw American troops and complaints from U.S. lawmakers who are losing trust in Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki. In the reconciliation deal, the leaders agreed to ease restrictions on former members of Saddam's Ba'ath Party taking up government jobs to hold provincial elections and help security forces in stopping the bloodshed. U.S. Attorney General Alberto Gonzales is resigning as President George W. Bush's confidant fell victim to a political storm deepened by Democratic demands for a perjury probe. Gonzales, at the center of fierce rows over legal tactics in the war on terror and the showdown over the firing of federal prosecutors, is the latest top Bush ally to leave 17 months before the president exits the White House. A senior White House official confirmed the resignation of the top U.S. law enforcement officer, who has even lost confidence of senior Republicans. A pipeline to transfer 1.5 million barrels of the Caspian Sea crude oil from the northern city of Nekah to the southern port of Jask is to be constructed soon. Caretaker of the oil ministry, Ghulam Hossein Nozari, made the remark on Monday when he attended a ceremony to see an increase in the capacity of oil transfer from the southern port of Bandar Abbas to Isfahan, central Iran, from 200,000 to 360,000 barrels a day. He also said plannings are almost over for construction of gaseous condensates refinery and another heavy oil refinery in Bandar Abbas, southern Iran. President Ahmadinejad orders the Foreign Ministry to observe the recent bill approved by the Parliament on Iran's accession to the United Nations Optional Protocol to the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the Sale of Children, Child Prostitution and Child Pornography. The protocol, adopted by UN General Assembly on May 25, 2000, encourages overwhelming support for the Convention on the Rights of Child and calls for continuous improvement of the situation of children.
A report from the United Nations says Afghanistan's opium production has broken new records, rising by 34% this year. That's mostly in the more volatile southern regions of the country. The report says that the total area under opium cultivation has risen. This means the total harvest will be more than 8,000 tonnes, up more than 2,000 tonnes since last year. The problem is worst in the south, in areas where there is greatest instability. For example, in the volatile Helmand province, opium cultivation has risen by a huge margin, 48% on last year. But it says that there is an encouraging trend in areas where the Afghan government has increased its presence. According to the report, the number of provinces where there is no opium cultivation, that's in the centre and north of Afghanistan, has more than doubled since last year. On paper, the solution to the problem might seem simple, just wipe out the plants. But some Afghan farmers say growing poppies is the only way they can make a living. James Bayes travelled to Badakhshan province in northeastern Afghanistan to talk to some farmers there.
If you travel to rural parts of Afghanistan, you soon discover the scale of the country's drugs production. In many areas, poppies are absolutely everywhere. In the village of Darkhan in the mountainous northern province of Badakhshan, all the farmers and their families depend entirely on opium for their livelihoods.
People grow opium because they have to, otherwise their children will die out of hunger. We don't have enough land.
The villagers here grow a number of different crops. Here in neighbouring fields we've got wheat, sweet potato and then opium. Those two crops they say they grow for food, this one is grown for money. Not that they see much of the eventual profits. They're made by middlemen who traffic the drugs out of the country for sale as heroin on the streets of Europe. It's believed this village was the first place in the entire country to produce opium. In the 1950s, they had a royal warrant from the former king allowing its production for medicinal use. Farmers know it's banned now, but they say they have no choice.
In Islam, if you are dying of hunger, you are allowed to eat pork. We think of opium as worse than pork, but we are growing it because we are desperate.
The farmers say they don't know what future their children will have if the Afghan government go ahead and eradicate their crop. School classes are held in tents on the edge of the village. The farmers say they paid out of their own pockets to build these makeshift classrooms. Without opium, they say, their children would not be receiving an education. There are so many poppies being grown this year in Afghanistan that prices for opium are low, and farmers say that's why they're also this year growing hashish. They say they'll do anything to support their families in this war-ravaged and desperately poor country. James Bayes, Al Jazeera, Badakhshan in northern Afghanistan.
Hi, I'm Jim Zogby, host of Viewpoint. I've spent more than 3 decades discussing issues that affect Arabs and Arab Americans. Despite some recent positive changes in America's perception of Arab countries, most Americans still do not understand the Arab experience. Now, with our troops in their 5th year in Iraq, the need for that understanding is more urgent than ever. When you support programs like Viewpoint and Mosaic, you're bringing us closer to this much-needed understanding. Because of places like Link TV, these programs can air free and uncensored. But your support is critical to keep these programs on the air. Link TV is viewer-supported. That means that shows like Viewpoint can only remain on the air with your help. Please call the number on your screen and help us broaden global understanding and continue presenting free, uncensored, quality program. Call the number on your screen or log on to linktv.org and make a generous donation today. Thanks for watching and supporting Viewpoint and Mosaic.
Mosaic needs your support. Help us reach our goal to raise $200,000 by the end of the year to keep Mosaic on the air. Pledge your gift today at 1-866-485-8848 or linktv.org. Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.